Hai Hai is my love letter to all things Southeast Asian. I grew up Vietnamese. My parents are from Vietnam and they came over during the war. Hai Hai is about the food that I ate during my childhood, growing up, about food that I discovered when traveling through Southeast Asia later in my life. The most exciting thing about Southeast Asian cuisine is that it does use a lot of balance. So you'll get like different temperature contrasts, like something hot mixed with something cold. You get something sweet, spicy. Once you mix them all together, you're like, oh my gosh, this is magical and I want this in my life. So my parents, they both came over, I think around 75. When Saigon was falling to the communists, they both lived there, didn't know each other back then. And it was very traumatic. It's like pick up everything that you can hold or bring and just, leave. That's terrifying to think about, having to leave your life behind with, barely any notice at all. My mom started at 3M, but then she ended up leaving there and starting her own print shop. I think that, having my mom be so entrepreneurial and not afraid to kind of strike out on her own has definitely guided me to want to be an entrepreneur, or at least it normalized that for me, and made me think that's not that scary. My childhood was, I guess what I think is normal isn't necessarily normal, but I did go to a mostly white school, and I think I was one of two Asian people other than my brother. Being a child of refugees, your parents just want the best for you. So, what they thought was best was going to a private school. It was a little othering, I suppose. When I think back at it, I definitely, have the same lunchbox story that so many of us have, where you're okay, I'm opening up my lunch and it's Spam fried rice and it's cold, and that's number one, probably shouldn't be eaten cold. Number two, I was just okay, I just want to buy school lunch like everybody else so they're not going to think I'm a total weirdo. My parents loved making skewers and stuff, just delicious grilled meats. I think that the thing that really drove me to want to cook the most was that when I would start to travel, then I'd want to learn how to make the things that I tried there so that I could bring it back. I think that some of my love of cooking is just out of recreating these nostalgic dishes. Our first restaurant that started out as a food truck was actually Venezuelan arepas that we tried actually just somewhere else in the US. And I was like, wow, we don't have arepas in the Twin Cities. I love Latin food because, it has a lot of those same kind of touchstones and bold flavors as Asian food, and I could eat it every day too. So I was like, oh, it would be great to have arepas here. We should make an arepa food truck. I think a lot of people are curious about my choice, why as a Vietnamese person wouldn't you just open a Vietnamese food truck? But I think that at that point, there are so many Vietnamese restaurants and they serve such good food that I knew that it would I'd always be compared to those other restaurants, and what do I have to add to that that's better, Like any chef, once you're cooking a certain food for a while, then when you're at home, you're probably not cooking that food anymore. I'm taco night at home is over because we're making Latin food every day, and I can eat that stuff literally whenever I want to. So then I found myself cooking more, more Vietnamese food, more Southeast Asian food at home. I just was feeling really inspired by that. So when we came and saw this space, we thought that it was going to be a second Ola arepa. Then once I was in here, then I was I don't think this is an Ola. I think this is maybe a Southeast Asian restaurant. And my husband was like, oh yeah? I thought we were opening another Ola arepa. And I was like, no, I think this is what we're doing. Doing Hai Hai was sort of okay, it's been in the back of my mind forever, but I did not know it until I saw this space that I wanted to do it right away. I think that growing up Vietnamese American and not being the most Vietnamese person, I'm okay, do I have any authorship over like Vietnamese menu at all? So that's why I'm really always cautious to say like, this is just my experience as a Vietnamese American. It's not anybody else's. I think that in order to not let foodways die, you just have to keep, making them and evolving and making them your own. Having been a self-taught chef too, it took me a long time to take any real ownership over that title. It was hard because, I didn't go to culinary school at all, and I just kind of taught myself how to cook. And so for a while I was like, well, I don't want to say that I'm the chef. So when we started with Ola Repa, everybody just assumed that my husband, Burke, was the chef since he's like the white male. I was like, wait a minute, but like he's not a chef. And I'm like, but I'm not a chef either, so who's the chef? And I'm like, I guess it's me because I'm like making the recipes and I'm teaching people how to make it. So it's funny when you're not necessarily trying to be something and then you are. I feel more like I should be just like hiding in the kitchen or something, but realized also that I needed to step up and start to take ownership over it because I didn't want somebody else to, for sure. And also, I think that it means something to take that place and like have that platform and try to, oh gosh, I definitely don't want to say inspire other people to be, I don't know, to take ownership over that. But I think it is important to know that you don't have to have the most traditional path or most traditional way into it. Somehow I weaseled my way into the restaurant industry here, and have made some successful restaurants. So I should be proud of that, I guess.